Nobody saw this alliance coming. Just when fans thought the drama couldn't get any messier, Jasmine and Yandy did the unthinkable, they joined forces. And the moment that news hit the blogs, shockwaves ripped through the entire circle. Group chats exploded, timelines caught fire, and fans were left asking one burning question. If Jasmine and Yandy are suddenly standing together, who in the world is standing with Rasheeda now? What started as quiet tension has erupted into full-blown chaos. Old wounds were ripped open, past accusations resurfaced, and loyalties were tested in ways no one was prepared for. Sources close to the situation say emotions ran high behind closed doors, with voices raised, tears shed, and lines crossed that can never be uncrossed. One insider whispered, "This wasn't just strategy, this was personal." Fans are shocked by how fast things escalated. Jasmine, once seen as isolated and fighting alone, suddenly appeared confident and calculated. Yandy, known for her sharp instincts, seemed ready to burn bridges if it meant protecting her position. Together, they looked unstoppable. But that power move came at a cost, and that cost may be Rasheeda. Those closest to Rasheeda noticed the shift immediately. The phone calls slowed, invitations stopped coming, support that once felt solid suddenly felt shaky. The family was left divided, with some urging Rasheeda to fight back and others warning her to stay quiet before things got even uglier. And when Rasheeda finally realized she might be standing alone, the silence spoke louder than any argument ever could. This isn't just reality TV drama, it's betrayal, survival, and pride colliding in real time. And as the lines are drawn and alliances harden, one thing is clear: this story is far from over. The tension didn't explode all at once, it crept in quietly, like a rumor nobody wanted to repeat out loud. At first, it was just whispers in hallways and side eyes at events, the kind that made everyone uncomfortable but no one brave enough to confront. Rasheeda felt it before she could explain it. Something had shifted, something cold and unfamiliar, and it was coming from people she once trusted. She tried to ignore it, telling herself she was imagining things, but deep down she knew better. When you've been in the game long enough, you can feel betrayal before it shows its face. Jasmine, on the other hand, was tired of feeling cornered. For months she had been painted as the outsider, the disruptor, the one everyone blamed when things went wrong. Every conversation about her felt like a verdict already decided. She told herself she was done defending her name, done explaining her side to people who never wanted to hear it. But anger has a way of sharpening focus, and Jasmine started thinking differently. If they were going to call her the villain anyway, maybe it was time to stop standing alone. Yandy had been watching everything unfold from a distance, calculating, listening more than she spoke. She saw how quickly the narrative could flip and how loyalty in this circle was as fragile as glass. She had her own reasons for being cautious. She had built too much to let it crumble because of someone else's mess. But she also knew power didn't come from isolation. Power came from alignment, from choosing the right moment and the right partner. When Jasmine reached out, it wasn't emotional. It was strategic, and Yandy respected that. The first conversation between Jasmine and Yandy happened late at night, away from cameras and curious ears. Voices were low but intense. Jasmine laid everything out, every slight, every accusation, every moment she felt thrown to the wolves. Yandy didn't interrupt. When Jasmine finished, there was a long pause. Then Yandy spoke, calmly, almost chillingly, and said she had noticed the same patterns. The same people who smiled in your face were the first to question you when the room turned cold. By the end of that conversation, something unspoken had formed between them. Not friendship, not trust, but a mutual understanding. And that was enough. Rasheeda found out about the alliance the worst way possible, not from a call or a warning, but through silence. She heard about a private meeting she wasn't invited to. Then another. Then she noticed the looks when she walked into a room, conversations stopping mid-sentence. She laughed it off at first, making jokes, pretending she didn't care. But at home, the laughter faded. She replayed every recent interaction in her head, trying to figure out where she lost control of the narrative. Who had said what? Who had decided she was suddenly expendable? When fans started noticing, things escalated fast. Comments flooded social media, asking why Jasmine and Yandy were suddenly inseparable and why Rasheeda seemed pushed to the sidelines. Fans are shocked became the phrase everyone repeated, because no one expected these lines to be drawn so boldly. Rasheeda's supporters demanded answers, while others claimed this was karma finally catching up. Emotions ran high, not just on screen, but off it too. Family members weighed in, friends picked sides, and neutrality became impossible. Rasheeda finally confronted Jasmine at a small gathering that was supposed to be peaceful. The room froze when she walked up to her. Rasheeda's voice was calm but tight, asking why she wasn't told about the alliance. Jasmine didn't flinch. She said she didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. The words hit like a slap. Yandy stood nearby, silent but present, her silence louder than any shout. Rasheeda turned to her, searching for reassurance, but didn't find it. That was the moment it sank in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a move. The argument escalated quickly. Voices rose, old secrets spilled out, and accusations flew without mercy. Rasheeda accused Jasmine of playing victim while pulling strings behind the scenes. Jasmine fired back, saying Rasheeda had always hidden behind respectability while letting others do her dirty work. The room felt suffocating. People tried to intervene, but it was too late. Years of resentment poured out in minutes. The family was left divided, some pulling Rasheeda away, others whispering that Jasmine had finally said what everyone was thinking. After that night, there was no turning back. Jasmine and Yandy became more visible together, attending events side by side, speaking with confidence that bordered on defiance. Every appearance felt like a statement. Rasheeda watched from a distance, her frustration mixing with hurt. She wasn't just losing allies, she was losing control of her story. And in this world, losing the narrative was the most dangerous thing of all. Alone in her living room, Rasheeda stared at her phone, debating who to call. Names ran through her mind, but doubt followed each one. Who was really with her, and who was just waiting to see how this played out? As the night dragged on, one thought echoed louder than the rest. Jasmine and Yandy hadn't just formed a team. They had changed the game. And Rasheeda was now fighting to figure out her next move before it was too late. The next morning didn't bring clarity, it brought consequences. Rasheeda woke up to missed calls and unread messages, some filled with concern, others laced with thinly veiled judgment. The blogs had already twisted the confrontation into something uglier, framing her as blindsided and unprepared, while Jasmine was being praised for finally standing her ground. Rasheeda felt the sting deeply. It wasn't just about public perception, it was about realizing how quickly people rewrote history when it suited them. Jasmine, meanwhile, felt a rush she hadn't experienced in a long time. For once, she wasn't waking up to defend herself. She scrolled through comments with a half-smile, seeing fans argue on her behalf, calling her brave, calling her real. But beneath that confidence was a knot of anxiety. Aligning with Yandy meant protection, yes, but it also meant expectations. Jasmine knew this wasn't a friendship built on trust. This was a partnership built on leverage, and leverage could turn dangerous if mishandled. Yandy was already 3 steps ahead. She took calls early, controlling the narrative before it could spiral. She spoke calmly, strategically, never fully confirming or denying anything. People noticed. Some admired her composure, others accused her of being cold. But Yandy didn't care. She understood that silence, when used correctly, could be louder than any statement. Privately, she reminded Jasmine to stay focused, to avoid emotional outbursts. Let them talk, she said. We move when it benefits us. Rasheeda decided she wouldn't stay silent. She invited a few close friends over, people she believed were still loyal. The conversation quickly turned heavy. One friend warned her that Jasmine and Yandy were gaining support fast. Another suggested she apologize publicly, even if she felt she'd done nothing wrong. That suggestion sparked anger. Rasheeda slammed her hand on the table, saying she refused to beg for acceptance. Emotions ran high as she admitted, for the first time, that she felt betrayed not just by Jasmine, but by Yandy's silence. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. Bridges were burning. When word got back to Jasmine that Rasheeda had been venting, she took it personally. She felt exposed, like her private frustrations were being weaponized. She called Yandy immediately, her voice tight, asking if this was how things were going to go. Yandy listened, then reminded her that backlash was inevitable. This is the part where they try to make you doubt yourself, she said. Don't let them. Those words settled something inside Jasmine. She decided she would no longer explain her pain to people who benefited from misunderstanding it. The next public appearance changed everything. All 3 women were in the same space again, and the tension was undeniable. Cameras caught every glance, every forced smile. Fans watching could feel it through the screen. When Rasheeda entered, conversations shifted. Jasmine didn't look away. Yandy nodded politely but didn't move toward her. That single moment sent fans into a frenzy. Screenshots circulated, slowed-down clips analyzed. Fans are shocked became the headline again, because the divide was no longer subtle. It was undeniable. Rasheeda tried to keep her composure, but when someone casually mentioned Jasmine's growth, she snapped. She excused herself, retreating to a private room, fighting tears. This wasn't how she imagined things would turn out. She had believed loyalty was earned through time and respect, not sudden alliances. Alone, she questioned whether she had underestimated Jasmine or overestimated the strength of her own relationships. The realization was painful. She might have been too comfortable, too confident that her position was untouchable. Back on the floor, Jasmine felt a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. She hadn't wanted to hurt Rasheeda this deeply, but she also refused to shrink herself anymore. Yandy noticed the conflict in her eyes and pulled her aside. She warned her not to let sympathy weaken their stance. "This is bigger than feelings now," she said quietly. "Once you hesitate, you lose." Jasmine nodded, even though her chest felt heavy. She knew Yandy was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. By the end of the night, the family was left divided more than ever. Some rallied around Rasheeda, calling the alliance fake and temporary. Others claimed Jasmine and Yandy were finally exposing truths no one wanted to admit. Social media became a battlefield, with fans choosing sides and refusing to back down. Every post added fuel to the fire, every comment deepening the divide. As the days passed, the silence between Rasheeda and Yandy grew louder. No calls, no texts, just distance. Rasheeda took that silence as confirmation. Whatever bond they once had was gone. And with Jasmine standing firmly beside Yandy, Rasheeda realized she was no longer fighting one person. She was fighting a united front. The question haunting her now wasn't why they teamed up. It was how far they were willing to go, and whether she was prepared for what was coming next. The fallout didn't slow down, it multiplied. Rasheeda's phone kept buzzing, but the voices on the other end no longer sounded supportive, they sounded cautious. People asked questions that felt like accusations, wondering if she had misplayed her hand, if she had underestimated Jasmine's resolve or Yandy's influence. Rasheeda felt cornered, not by enemies, but by the shifting loyalty of people she once believed were solid. Every conversation ended the same way, with polite reassurance followed by distance. It was becoming clear that neutrality no longer existed. Jasmine felt the pressure too, even if she refused to show it. The attention was intense, the praise loud, but so was the criticism. Some fans accused her of betrayal, others claimed she was being used. She brushed off the comments publicly, but privately, doubt crept in during quiet moments. She replayed Yandy's words in her head, reminding herself why she made this choice. She hadn't teamed up to be liked. She teamed up to survive. Still, survival came with a cost, and she was starting to feel it. Yandy remained composed, but even she couldn't ignore the ripple effects. Old allies reached out, probing for reassurance, trying to figure out where they stood. Yandy answered carefully, never overcommitting, never revealing too much. She knew every word could be dissected, twisted, and replayed. Power, she understood, was about restraint. While others reacted emotionally, she stayed measured, letting the chaos exhaust itself while she observed who cracked under pressure. The tension reached a boiling point when a private message meant for a small circle leaked online. The message hinted at Rasheeda being out of touch and suggested that new leadership was emerging. Fans went wild. "Fans are shocked" became an understatement. Rasheeda was furious, convinced Jasmine was behind it. She confronted her through a call that quickly turned explosive. Rasheeda demanded to know why Jasmine was trying to humiliate her publicly. Jasmine denied leaking anything, but her tone was cold, detached. She told Rasheeda that if the truth was hurting her, maybe it was time to reflect instead of pointing fingers. That conversation ended with no resolution, just bitterness. Rasheeda felt something inside her harden. The hurt was turning into determination. She decided she wouldn't beg for loyalty or sympathy. If she was going to stand alone, she would stand strong. She began reaching out to people quietly, rebuilding connections without announcements or theatrics. Some responded, others didn't, but for the first time since the alliance formed, Rasheeda felt a sense of control returning. Jasmine sensed the shift too. She noticed Rasheeda wasn't reacting the way everyone expected. There were no public breakdowns, no desperate pleas. Instead, there was silence, and that silence was unsettling. Jasmine asked Yandy if they should be concerned. Yandy didn't dismiss the question. She reminded Jasmine that Rasheeda was experienced and resilient. "Don't mistake quiet for weakness," she warned. The reminder lingered, planting seeds of unease. Another gathering brought them face to face again, and the energy was different. Rasheeda walked in calm, composed, greeting people with confidence. Jasmine felt eyes turn toward her, watching for a reaction. Yandy noticed too. The power dynamic felt less certain now. When Rasheeda finally approached them, she didn't argue. She didn't accuse. She simply said, "I see what you're doing. Just remember, moves have consequences." The words were soft, but heavy. Then she walked away, leaving tension hanging in the air. That moment shook Jasmine more than any argument had. She realized this wasn't a game of immediate wins. This was a long battle, one that could drag on and damage everyone involved. She questioned whether aligning so closely with Yandy meant she had burned bridges she might one day need. Yandy, however, remained firm. She told Jasmine that fear was natural, but retreat was not an option. Once you show hesitation, she said, you invite attack. Behind the scenes, families weighed in. Relatives urged reconciliation, worried the feud was becoming too public, too damaging. Others encouraged standing firm, reminding each woman of what was at stake. The family was left divided, not just between Jasmine, Yandy, and Rasheeda, but within their own homes. Dinners turned tense. Conversations avoided names that now felt explosive. As rumors of new alliances and secret meetings spread, fans speculated endlessly. Every post, every appearance was analyzed for hidden meaning. Some claimed Rasheeda was quietly rebuilding an army. Others insisted Jasmine and Yandy were tightening their grip. The uncertainty fueled the drama, making everyone more defensive, more strategic. By the end of the week, one thing was clear to all three women. This conflict was no longer about one argument or one alliance. It had become a test of endurance, pride, and power. And as each of them prepared for the next move, none could say for sure who would come out unscathed when the dust finally settled. The pressure reached a level none of them could ignore anymore. Rasheeda's quiet confidence unsettled people more than any outburst ever could. Those close to her noticed the change immediately. She wasn't venting, wasn't complaining, wasn't reacting. Instead, she was listening. Every conversation became a data point, every interaction a test of loyalty. She smiled more in public, but behind closed doors, she was calculating her next move with precision. The narrative had painted her as isolated, but isolation had given her clarity. Jasmine, meanwhile, was feeling the weight of visibility. Being aligned with Yandy brought protection, but it also came with constant scrutiny. Every word she said was dissected. Every expression became a headline. Fans who once cheered her on began questioning her motives. Some accused her of abandoning her principles for power. Others warned her that Yandy had a history of alliances that ended badly. Jasmine tried to ignore the noise, but late at night, the doubts grew louder. She wondered if she had traded one form of isolation for another. Yandy sensed the shift in Jasmine's energy. She pulled her aside during a quiet moment and asked her directly if she was having second thoughts. Jasmine hesitated before answering, which told Yandy everything she needed to know. She reminded Jasmine that uncertainty was exactly what their opponents wanted. They're waiting for you to crack, she said. Don't give them that satisfaction. Jasmine nodded, but her expression betrayed inner conflict. Strength was easier to project than to maintain. Rasheeda's rebuilding wasn't happening loudly, but it was happening steadily. She reconnected with people she hadn't spoken to in years, not to complain, but to listen and offer support. Those conversations felt genuine, unforced. Slowly, word spread that Rasheeda wasn't bitter. She was focused. Fans began noticing too. Comments shifted from sympathy to respect. Fans are shocked once again, not by an explosion, but by her restraint. It challenged the image that had been painted of her as desperate or defeated. The turning point came when a trusted mutual acquaintance decided to stir the pot. During a casual conversation with Jasmine, they hinted that Rasheeda was planning something big, something meant to expose everyone involved. The implication alone was enough to trigger alarm. Jasmine confronted Yandy immediately, her voice sharp with fear and frustration. Yandy stayed calm, but her eyes hardened. She knew rumors were weapons, and someone was firing them deliberately. Instead of reacting publicly, Yandy made a move behind the scenes. She reached out to Rasheeda directly for the first time since everything fell apart. The message was brief and carefully worded, asking for a private conversation. Rasheeda stared at the screen for a long time before responding. Part of her wanted to ignore it completely. Another part recognized the opportunity. She agreed, setting conditions that made it clear she was no longer seeking approval. When they met, the atmosphere was tense but controlled. There were no raised voices, no dramatic accusations. Just two women sitting across from each other, aware that every word mattered. Yandy acknowledged that things had spiraled out of control. Rasheeda listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't attack. She simply said she felt discarded and underestimated. That honesty caught Yandy off guard. The conversation didn't end in reconciliation, but it shifted something. Yandy left realizing Rasheeda was far from finished. Jasmine, who wasn't present, sensed the change immediately when Yandy returned quieter than usual. Jasmine asked what was said. Yandy replied carefully, saying only that Rasheeda wasn't playing the role everyone expected. That answer made Jasmine uneasy. Unpredictability was dangerous. As days passed, the tension manifested in subtle ways. Jasmine became more guarded, less expressive. Yandy doubled down on control, limiting access and information. Rasheeda, however, continued moving calmly, attending events, engaging fans, reclaiming space without confrontation. The contrast was striking. People began whispering that the power balance was shifting again. Family pressure intensified on all sides. Loved ones urged peace, warning that the feud was damaging reputations and futures. Others fueled the fire, insisting that backing down would look weak. The family was left divided, torn between pride and protection. Dinners ended in arguments. Friendships strained under the weight of loyalty tests. Fans speculated endlessly about a potential confrontation, a public showdown that would finally clarify where everyone stood. Anticipation built with every appearance. When all three women attended the same high-profile event weeks later, the energy was electric. Cameras followed every move. Jasmine and Yandy arrived together, composed but visibly tense. Rasheeda arrived alone, confident, smiling. The visual alone sent shockwaves through the audience. During the event, an unexpected moment unfolded. Rasheeda was asked a direct question about loyalty and alliances. The room went silent. Instead of deflecting, she answered calmly, saying loyalty wasn't about standing beside someone loudly, but standing firm in your values even when you stand alone. The applause was immediate. Jasmine felt her chest tighten. Yandy maintained her composure, but inside, she recognized the impact. Rasheeda had just won a moment without attacking anyone. That night marked a subtle but significant shift. Fans rallied harder around Rasheeda, praising her grace under pressure. Jasmine's confidence wavered, her alliance suddenly feeling less secure. Yandy remained strategic, but even she couldn't ignore that the narrative was slipping from her control. The game they thought they were winning had become more complex, more dangerous. As the dust settled, all three women were forced to confront uncomfortable truths. Alliances could protect you, but they could also expose you. Silence could be strength, but it could also be strategy. And in this battle, no one was completely innocent, and no one was completely safe. The question was no longer who was standing with whom. It was who would still be standing when everything finally came crashing down. The shift didn't go unnoticed, and that's when the real fear set in. Jasmine could feel it in the way rooms went quiet when Rasheeda entered, in the way conversations leaned toward admiration instead of pity. This wasn't the reaction anyone had predicted. Rasheeda wasn't crumbling. She wasn't lashing out. She was evolving, and that evolution made people nervous. Especially Jasmine. Because deep down, Jasmine knew this wasn't the ending she had prepared for. Late one night, Jasmine sat alone scrolling through clips of that event, replaying Rasheeda's words over and over. Loyalty isn't about standing beside someone loudly. The sentence echoed in her mind like a challenge. She wondered if people were now questioning her own loyalty, not just to Rasheeda, but to herself. Aligning with Yandy had felt empowering at first, but now it felt like armor she couldn't remove without exposing herself completely. Yandy, for her part, was already planning damage control. She arranged private meetings, made quiet calls, and subtly reminded people of her influence. But even she could feel the ground shifting beneath her feet. Rasheeda's calm had disrupted the usual cycle of chaos. There was no scandal to exploit, no emotional meltdown to capitalize on. It was forcing Yandy into unfamiliar territory, where control wasn't guaranteed. Rumors began circulating that Rasheeda was being approached for opportunities that didn't involve either Jasmine or Yandy. Whispers of independent projects, exclusive appearances, and new alliances filled the air. Fans speculated nonstop. Fans are shocked turned into fans are impressed. That change in tone was impossible to ignore. Jasmine saw it as a direct threat. Yandy saw it as a warning. Jasmine finally voiced what she had been holding in. During a private conversation, she asked Yandy if they had miscalculated. The question hung heavy between them. Yandy didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked Jasmine if she was ready to stand firm if things got uglier. Jasmine hesitated, and that hesitation spoke volumes. Yandy reminded her that backing out now would make her look unstable. You can't half commit to power, she said. You either own it, or it owns you. Rasheeda, meanwhile, was dealing with her own internal struggle. Strength didn't erase hurt. At night, when the noise faded, she allowed herself to feel the weight of what she had lost. Friendships, trust, familiarity, but she also felt something new growing beneath the pain. Confidence. She realized she didn't need to expose anyone or tear anyone down. Her growth alone was doing the work for her. The next confrontation wasn't planned, which made it even more intense. It happened in a setting where emotions were already running high. Jasmine and Rasheeda found themselves alone for a brief moment, no cameras, no audience. The silence between them was thick. Jasmine broke it first, asking Rasheeda if she was trying to turn everyone against her. Rasheeda looked at her, surprised, then shook her head. She said she wasn't trying to do anything to Jasmine. She was just done shrinking. Those words hit Jasmine harder than any accusation. She realized Rasheeda wasn't fighting her. She was fighting for herself. And that made Jasmine question everything. She admitted, quietly, that she felt trapped by expectations. Rasheeda listened, truly listened, then said something unexpected. She said she never wanted Jasmine to feel alone, even now. But she also said she couldn't sacrifice her peace to make others comfortable anymore. When Jasmine walked away from that exchange, she felt conflicted and exposed. She didn't tell Yandy about it right away. She couldn't. Admitting that Rasheeda had reached her on a human level felt like betrayal to the alliance she had chosen. Yandy noticed the distance immediately. Questions followed. Tension grew. Soon after, a new wave of speculation hit. Fans began wondering if the alliance between Jasmine and Yandy was cracking. Every interaction was scrutinized. A missed appearance. A delayed response. A subtle change in body language. Fans are shocked resurfaced once more, this time aimed at the possibility that the team everyone feared was starting to fracture. Yandy confronted Jasmine directly, demanding honesty. Jasmine confessed that she was exhausted, that she felt like every move was being judged, and that she wasn't sure this path still felt right. Yandy's reaction was sharp. She accused Jasmine of wavering at the worst possible time. She reminded her of everything they had built together. The conversation ended coldly, without resolution. Rasheeda sensed the fracture without being told. She could feel the energy shifting again. But instead of celebrating, she stayed focused. She knew better than to underestimate either of them. Instability could make people unpredictable. And unpredictability was dangerous. Families grew more vocal. Some urged all three women to sit down together and end the feud once and for all. Others warned that reconciliation now would look like weakness. The family was left divided again, torn between peace and pride. The emotional toll spread beyond the main players, affecting children, partners, and friendships that had nothing to do with the original conflict. Then came the moment no one expected. Jasmine made a public statement, not naming names, but speaking openly about pressure, expectations, and the cost of aligning yourself with power that doesn't always reflect your truth. The internet exploded. Fans debated fiercely over who the message was aimed at. Some praised her vulnerability. Others accused her of throwing Yandy under the bus. Yandy stayed silent, but her silence this time felt heavy, not strategic. Rasheeda watched the reaction carefully. She didn't comment. She didn't repost. She didn't react. Her restraint spoke louder than words. People noticed. The narrative began to tilt even further. Behind closed doors, Yandy felt the sting of losing control. She had built her reputation on precision and foresight, and now cracks were forming in the very alliance she helped create. She considered confronting Rasheeda again, but pride held her back. Admitting missteps wasn't easy when you were known for always being ahead of the game. Jasmine, caught between loyalty and self-preservation, felt torn apart. She wondered if she had mistaken alignment for empowerment. The realization was painful. She hadn't meant to become a symbol of division. She just wanted to be heard. As weeks passed, the tension didn't resolve. It transformed. The drama became quieter but more intense. No screaming matches. No explosive confrontations. Just calculated moves, strategic silences, and emotional distance. Each woman stood on different ground now, shaped by the same conflict in completely different ways. One thing was undeniable. This story was no longer about who teamed up with whom. It was about identity, control, and the price of power. And as each of them faced the consequences of their choices, the audience was left watching, waiting, and wondering who would make the final move that would change everything yet again. The calm before the storm didn't feel peaceful, it felt heavy. Every appearance, every silence, every delayed response carried meaning now. Rasheeda could sense it building again, that familiar pressure that came before things exploded. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She had learned that chaos didn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrived quietly, dressed as opportunity. Jasmine's statement continued to echo across platforms, dissected word by word. Fans debated whether it was courage or calculation. Some saw it as growth, others as a warning shot. Jasmine herself felt exposed in a way she hadn't anticipated. Saying those words out loud had been freeing, but it also made her vulnerable. She had cracked the door open, and now everyone wanted to look inside. Yandy felt cornered by the reaction. Silence had always been her shield, but now it was being interpreted as guilt, or worse, loss of control. People began questioning her leadership, her loyalty, her ability to hold a team together. That stung more than she expected. She had built her reputation on being unshakable, and suddenly, the cracks were public. Behind the scenes, conversations intensified. Producers, associates, and mutual contacts all wanted clarity. Where did everyone stand? What was next? Rasheeda answered calmly, never overcommitting, never revealing too much. Jasmine avoided specifics, choosing words carefully. Yandy became more guarded than ever, limiting access and tightening her circle. The tension wasn't just personal anymore, it was professional. Rasheeda's quiet momentum continued. She received offers that didn't require alliances or explanations. Just presence. Just authenticity. Each invitation felt like validation, not revenge. She accepted selectively, aware that every move would be scrutinized. Still, she refused to shrink. Fans responded immediately. They saw confidence without cruelty, strength without spectacle. Fans are shocked again, but this time by her consistency. Jasmine watched from a distance, conflicted. Part of her felt proud of Rasheeda. Another part felt replaced. She wondered if the space she had fought so hard to claim was now slipping away. Aligning with Yandy had given her power, but Rasheeda standing alone was showing a different kind of power entirely. One that didn't depend on anyone else. The tension between Jasmine and Yandy finally erupted behind closed doors. Words that had been held back for weeks spilled out all at once. Jasmine accused Yandy of treating her like a pawn. Yandy fired back, saying Jasmine was letting emotions cloud strategy. Voices rose. Trust fractured further. By the end of the conversation, nothing was resolved, but something was broken. The alliance that once felt unbreakable now felt fragile. Rasheeda wasn't present for that moment, but she felt its impact almost immediately. The energy shifted again. People reached out differently. Questions changed tone. Instead of asking how she was holding up, they asked what she was planning. The assumption had flipped. She was no longer seen as reacting. She was seen as preparing. Families continued to feel the strain. Loved ones worried about long-term consequences. Children sensed tension they couldn't name. Partners urged caution, reminding each woman that public battles had private costs. The family was left divided in quieter ways now, less dramatic but more painful. Avoidance replaced confrontation. Silence replaced honesty. Jasmine found herself at a crossroads. She could double down on an alliance that no longer felt aligned, or she could step into uncertainty alone. The idea terrified her. Standing alone meant losing protection, losing leverage. But staying meant losing herself. She confided in someone she trusted, admitting she felt like she had traded her voice for validation. Saying it out loud made it real. Yandy, facing her own reckoning, began to realize that control wasn't absolute. She had underestimated the power of restraint, the influence of quiet resilience. Rasheeda hadn't attacked her. She hadn't exposed her. She had simply refused to be diminished. And that refusal was changing everything. The next major event brought all three women back into the same space once more. Anticipation was intense. Fans waited for confrontation, for drama, for a breaking point. Instead, they witnessed something unexpected. Distance. Jasmine arrived alone. Yandy arrived surrounded by her inner circle. Rasheeda arrived calm, centered, unbothered. The visual told a story words couldn't. During the event, an unexpected question was directed at Jasmine about alliances and identity. The room held its breath. Jasmine paused, then answered honestly. She said growth sometimes meant realizing when a chapter no longer fit who you were becoming. The statement sent shockwaves. Fans erupted online. Fans are shocked trended again, this time attached to speculation that Jasmine was signaling a major shift. Yandy watched, expression unreadable. Rasheeda listened, thoughtful. Neither reacted publicly, but both understood the weight of what had been said. Jasmine had just created space between herself and Yandy, whether intentionally or not. And once space existed, anything could happen. After that night, the dynamic changed permanently. Jasmine stepped back, choosing fewer appearances, focusing inward. Yandy tightened her circle further, protecting her image and her influence. Rasheeda continued forward, steady and deliberate, refusing to be pulled into speculation or sides. The drama didn't end. It transformed into something deeper, more complex. No clear villains. No clear heroes. Just women navigating power, loyalty, and self-worth in a space that demanded spectacle but punished vulnerability. Fans continued to debate, to choose sides, to demand answers. Unresolved questions lingered. Would Jasmine fully break away? Would Yandy reclaim control? Would Rasheeda continue rising without looking back? The uncertainty kept everyone watching. One truth became undeniable. The alliance that started everything had exposed more than it protected. It revealed fractures that had always existed, insecurities that had been buried, and strengths that had been underestimated. And as each woman stood at a different stage of transformation, the story refused to settle. Because in this world, peace is temporary, power is borrowed, and the moment you think the story is over is usually the moment it's just getting started. Now it's your turn. After everything you've just heard, the alliances, the silence, the power shifts, and the emotional fallout, one question still hangs in the air. Who do you think is really winning this game, and who is just surviving it? Do you believe Jasmine is finding her voice, or losing her footing? Is Yandy still 10 steps ahead, or did control finally slip through her fingers? And is Rasheeda's quiet rise the most dangerous move of all? Fans are still shocked, emotions are still running high, and the family is clearly left divided. Nothing feels settled, and that's what makes this story impossible to ignore. Every choice has consequences, every silence sends a message, and every alliance comes with a price. And just when you think you know where this is going, the entire narrative flips again. If you were in their position, what would you do? Would you stand alone and protect your peace, or align yourself with power even if it costs you your voice? Would you confront the past, or let growth speak for you? This drama isn't just about them anymore. It's about choices, loyalty, and knowing when to walk away versus when to stand your ground. So now don't stay silent. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us exactly whose side you're on and why. Do you think reconciliation is still possible, or is this damage permanent? Make sure you like this video if you felt the tension, subscribe if you want more stories like this, and comment below because your voice matters just as much as theirs. This story isn't over yet. And trust me, the next chapter could change everything.